What's up, you guys? Welcome back into the Battleground Podcast, iHeartRadio's official wrestling podcast. It is an exciting week here on the show. Normally, Eli will have a certain shirt on for who we have on the show today. But today he's got Grateful Dead. So I enlisted the help of my 6-year-old to tell you who's on our show today, because as you can see, she is hanging up here on the shelf next to the AEW title. Let's go ahead and bring her in. We have the action figure Aubrey Edwards, and the real Aubrey Edwards joins us on the show today. How are you?
I am good. I like the action figure. That's a commitment, man, because that thing comes with a full ring. That takes up a lot of space.
My 6-year-old was very mad when I told him that I needed to borrow his referee for this interview, and I had to sneak it out of his room because, yes, he does have the ring. And currently right now, you are calling a match, and I'm looking over. I believe it's Adam Cole and somebody else, and there's somebody hanging in a cage on his makeshift thing over there. I don't know what kind of match it is at the moment, but
I think it's a Judy Bagwell on a pole match. Is that what it is?
That's probably what it is. That's probably what it is.
Well, let's skip to that question. How awesome is it to have your own action figure?
Yes.
It's wild. It's
like
it's kind of one of those, like, it's been a while since it's been out. I think it was like the first time, like last year, but I distinctly remember the first time someone like bringing it to a signing, like the whole box even. And they like drove 4 hours with this box, and they're like, I want you to sign it. So I literally signed it. This is the first one of these I've ever signed. And then like Cardona and all them that do their action figure podcasts are like, do you realize how much money you just made that guy? I'm like, oh my God.
Hopefully that guy's not going to be that guy and turn around and sell
right.
it.
Exactly. I was like, man, oh no, I hope he keeps it. Like, but it's been wild, right? Like, it's even just to think like how crazy it is to have an action figure as a referee, but knowing that there are like 3 to 4 women in the referee role at the highest level for how long wrestling's been around. That itself is kind of insane. And it's a nice little like way for me to check in and realize like, man, this is crazy. Like,
right.
I was in a completely different field 5 years ago, and now I'm sitting in a hotel room in Toronto talking to you guys about my action figure.
Right. I mean,
and it was a video game too.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, there was a time where, the females didn't have, that wasn't even an option. I mean, wrestlers, anything. I mean, I think they kind of like, you'd see like dolls or something occasionally, but like, I mean, it wasn't too long ago where a female action figure wasn't even on the table.
Exactly.
So anyways, I got sidetracked. That was a good segue.
That was perfect. And that's the thing. It's like, it's a cool moment to go and say, hey, I have my own action figure. Not many people can say that.
No. My mom bought 3 of them. One of them exclusively hangs in the Christmas tree at Christmas time.
Nice.
Is it kind of like Elf on the Shelf, but now it's something different? Does she move it around?
Aubrey in the tree.
Next to a strawberry, because she literally has like a strawberry ornament. It's pretty great.
That is.
You've seen Elf on the Shelf. Get ready for Aubrey in the tree.
Right. Doesn't have the same ring to it, but it's like way more sassy and just as authoritative.
I think Tony Khan could probably sell it though.
He could. A lot of people buy it. Something really cool recently happened, and we were very excited about this one.
A lot of people are excited.
You made your AEW wrestling debut last Friday night on Rampage, getting Karen Jarrett to tap out in the figure 4. I mean, a mixed tag. That's an amazing thing right there.
There are a lot of people jealous of that position you were in, by the way.
A lot, because a lot of people would want to just inflict damage on her, according to what we've seen on the internet. But how long had that been in the planning stages, and what was it like getting Karen to tap out?
I mean, just to peel back the curtain a little bit, like the story itself between like me and Jeff Jarrett and his posse had kind of like started sort of at our Seattle show back on January 4th, where there was sort of some hullabaloo. The ref didn't see the finish. We thought Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett had won the tag titles. And then I run in because, hey, I'm local and this is going to get a big reaction from the crowd. I overturn the match. We restart it and the heels end up losing. So it's kind of this thing. And just it kind of kept finding ways to sort of weave itself together with everything we were doing, whether I was reffing their matches or we'd have a ref bump and someone would run in, whatever it might be. And that sort of culminated at Double or Nothing, where I end up getting hit in the head with the guitar. And out of context, this is really fun to explain. So,
yeah.
So I'm glad people know this is a wrestling podcast. They're trying to what? Like, yeah. And it's one of those things like with wrestling, it's really important to have storytelling and long-term payoffs for our fans, right? So it's one thing to say, yeah, sure, we're going to hit a referee with a guitar and she's going to go down, but that's cool in the moment, but where does that go?
Mm-hmm.
And when you have the traditional heels and baby faces, if the heels don't get their comeuppance and the baby faces don't end up on top at the end, then you've just really, upset your fans. Like, why are they getting invested then? This is traditional storytelling. We have 3 acts we follow. It's as old as Shakespeare, even older, right? So from that, like the moment of Double or Nothing where the guitar shot happened, that's where we started talking like, okay, well, what is the next logical step for this? And they asked if I was willing to wrestle. And I said, dude, I can't even lock up correctly. Like, I'm a dancer. And then 22 years of ballet didn't teach me how to do like a headlock takeover. Like those don't translate, man.
Right. This is a different form of entertainment.
Yeah, very different. It's still physical, but very different form of entertainment. And it just came down to like, well, how can we really play this up? And how can we have fun with this? And it was really cool to get like opportunities. Like I got to choke Karen out in a promo. I had a live promo on Rampage, which was insane. Mm-hmm. And then, it ended up coming down to the match, which was great. And it just felt really cool. Like it felt really cool, like the way we kind of structured everything. Like I went over with the figure 4, but that's also Jay Lethal's move. Mm-hmm. So there's like that little bit of like meta-ness that the long-term fans really appreciate because they get it in the moment. Like, oh, this is that deeper story and that part of wrestling that's really nice. It's not just on the surface who wins and loses, but what are those little details that reward us as viewers watching this product for so long?
Right.
Yeah, it was cool. I'm glad it's over. I'm retiring undefeated.
That's the way to go.
I think you're the only undefeated wrestler on the roster right now, I believe.
I think so. Sting might be up there.
Sting, that's true. But those are tag matches, not splitting hairs. But Jay's no longer undefeated, so I think
it was a trios match. But for the record, like it does count as
that does count.
So yeah, it's official. I'm retiring from entering competition, not being able to walk for like 2 days without pain. But yeah, it's like I never want to do that again.
Yeah. Well, you brought up a good point too, because I mean, part of the whole reason AEW was even developed and founded and everything was kind of what you mentioned about storytelling, kind of like leaving the dangling fruit, like not finishing the 3 acts and just start, stop. So I mean, this is technically, like you said, going back to January, this is a 6-month story that a lot of companies still aren't. I won't say who, but a lot of companies don't do that. And so, and then it bled into this week's Dynamite. They had the concession stand, which coming from West Tennessee, that's like my bread and butter. That's what I grew up on. So like, I was like, oh yeah. So, and it's still going. I mean, there's still layers to it that are going to develop. So yeah, it's very awesome. So being with AEW as long as you have, what do you think has been, if there is one single thing, what do you think has been the biggest change since your day one to now? Has it been the production value? Has it been I don't know. I'm just spitballing. What do you think has been the biggest change since day one?
I think honestly, like the biggest change I think it's twofold. It's both internally how we feel the company, but I think also externally how the company is viewed. Mm-hmm. Like when we started, we were small, we were scrappy, we were the alternative, we were different. And I come from the corporate world, so I liken it a lot to we're a startup. There's a couple people with an idea and a lot of passion, and we're just going to put it out there and see how it works. We're going to put in the time, and hopefully eventually like it breaks through, and then we get all of this acclaim for it, right? And then fast forward, and now we've got all of these people who are legends in wrestling joining our company. Like we've just been talking about Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal, who are synonymous with TNA and ROH. Mm-hmm. So it's like we've got Jay White, we've got who just came over, we've got Sting, we've got Billy Gunn, we've got Arn Anderson, we have like all these people. We have Tony Schiavone, who's the guest on my like co-host of my podcast. So it's like this is insane, right?
Yeah.
We have this sort of like we started as this like young scrappy thing, and now it's like no, we're a main player because we haven't announced a single match for Wembley, and we're at 65,000 tickets.
Yeah.
It's wild. So I think internally it feels like there's been a ton of growth, like so fast that you're just like, I'm totally like lost and nauseous now. Mm-hmm. But externally as a fan, it's been really awesome to see this thing that we've been invested in. Because at the end of the day, we're all fans, right? Mm-hmm. To see this thing that we've all been invested in grow to be the juggernaut that it is. It's insane. I love it.
Yeah, and it's great to see because you have a little bit when you watch AEW, you have a little bit of every fan base that can tune in and watch something. Like, there's some places that you watch and it's kind of cookie cutter and you know it. But when you watch AEW with my 6-year-old, he is like in tuned with wrestling. Like he knows which night is which, when what show's on, and he will sit there and watch every single thing that goes down.
Good kid.
And the thing is like, he's extremely smart when it comes to wrestling because he's like, he knows who the bad guys are. He knows who the good guys are. And then he's like asking the questions, well, why did this happen? Why did that happen? And the great thing was watching on Wednesday nights. And then of course now on Friday and Saturdays as well, like you extend that storyline even further. And he's always got to make sure that if he misses Wednesday night being 6, he's like, what happened? What's going on?
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about it is you got normally you could just miss a week and still be caught up the next week.
Right.
But with you guys, like if you miss something, you're going to have to either try to figure out some bootleg way to watch it on Twitter or.
Yeah. I mean, if you missed the Go Home Dynamite, I mean, it was stacked. I mean, there was tons of stuff happening. And I think kind of bounced off what you're saying. I mean, this is unprecedented territory. I mean, most wrestling companies within less than 5 years are getting TV deals. I don't know the actual price. I mean, Wembley. I mean, even going back to the name we won't say in up north. I mean, they weren't doing this 5 years into their, you know what I mean? I mean, this really is uncharted territory. So for the fans that have been unfulfilled for all those years to see it get to where it's at this quickly, it's very awesome to see.
It's super awesome to see. And speaking of awesome, I mean, what has been in your mind the loudest AEW show or atmosphere that you've been a part of so far?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I think like there's a handful that stick out, and part of it is like I'm sitting in Toronto right now, and when we did our Toronto debut back in October, like that crowd was insane. There's just something fun about Canadian fans, and they just get it, and they're on board with it. They 100% invest everything in it. So I'm really excited for Forbidden Door this weekend because knowing how those fans responded to us when we were first here, and like everything feels a little bit bigger with a pay-per-view, right? Like you've got a ton of dream matches happening this weekend that as fans we're like, wait, we're getting what? Like no way in any lifetime anyone would have thought we would have seen Bryan Danielson and Okada. Like what we didn't deserve this. Who are we?
Right.
So I like Toronto is always a really great city. I think like really it stands out like Punk's debut at United Center when he came back to wrestling after 7 years. Like that was insane because United Center had sold out so quickly on the like rumor that he had been. And then as soon as that like riff hits in his song, the crowd just erupts.
I don't want to tell you how many times I've watched that debut in the last few years. If I just need a little boost, and my wife will be like, I get like, and so anyways, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, another one, it's just so many like moments. Like one of my favorite matches I've done was Eddie Kingston versus Chris Jericho at Revolution. And it was the first match to start the show, hot crowd. Jericho is in the ring. Eddie Kingston comes in, ring the bell. Jericho gets dumped on his head. And it's just immediately the crowd's like, oh my God, like this is insane because we cut right to the action. Right. So there's just so many little things like every crowd is great. Every show is great. There's just all these memorable moments that are happening constantly.
Yeah. I was at the first Double or Nothing when Moxley debuted, and that was loud. That was a loud Vegas crowd.
Oh my God. And you're just sitting there and you're like, why is everyone looking? Oh, whoa. Okay, cool. But that's what?
That one was, very loud. Where are we? Oh, so let's talk about your podcast with Tony Schiavone. Are there unrestricted? What is, do you have a dream guest that you have not talked to yet? Is there anybody floating around like, God, why have we not got this person yet?
I don't know. It's tricky because it's the advantage we have is it's the official AEW podcast, right? Like new episode every Thursday.
You know everybody. Yeah.
We're talking to people that like anyone you see on TV is fair game for us, and it's great. I feel like Jamie Hayter's been a little elusive. I would really love to have her on. The timing's just never really worked out. Yeah. And I know that she's out for a bit and she just dropped the title, but she was just a phenomenal women's champion. So I'd love to have her on. And then there's so many people that we interviewed super early. Like John Moxley was our first ever guest. We had JR, we had the Bucks, and that was all pre-pandemic. So we've all changed as people.
Oh, yeah.
Me itself has changed. I think it'd be great to honestly have them back on.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome.
Because I sit here and think about like what you're saying, like when we first started this podcast and when you guys first launched, like going back to the original time when we had Cody on, like Cody made the announcement on this podcast. It was like, what do you think about AEW Dynamite? And it's like, and then you progress over the years and think about how many people have come on this podcast. Like we're in the same boat. And I think maybe the internet would probably go out on the IWC with a lot of chatter right now. Maybe Goldberg could be a guest on Unrestricted.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? We have the Fight Forever game coming out next week. What are you most excited about that? What can you tell us from what you've seen and all that?
So this is funny because I feel like a lot of people just assume that I've been like super focused on the game because that's what my mind is. Yeah,
I did.
So whenever someone's like, "Wait, you don't work on the game?" I'm like, "No, I'm working on other cool stuff I can't talk about right now." But yeah, it's like I have not played Fight Forever at all.
Oh, really?
Yes, I have seen a couple clips, all the ones that people tag me in, like, "Hey, you're in this game," as someone's like chopping the crap out of me, which has been super fun to see. So I'm just excited to play it.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a really basic question, but like as a game developer, when you talk to people who work on games, if they're at this point in development and they're still excited about it, and talking to Kenny Omega and talking to like, no one knows who Nick Sobek is, but he's this high level executive who's been on this project since literally day one. And he's my boss and he's just so giddy about this game. Mm-hmm. And to not be completely jaded and so done with it and knowing it's going to be out means that it has stood the test of time, that despite through all of the troubles, they're excited for the game. So I'm excited to play it because I know that if people involved with it are still happy with it, 3-4 years later, it's going to be good.
Right.
And everything I've heard has indicated that it is the game that they set out to make. It is the old school N64 era wrestling game. It's arcadey. They didn't do mocap. They did like individual animation. So everything kind of feels more gamey. Like it sounds very generic, but I'm excited to play the game. That is probably
absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm also excited at the fact that it's going to be available on all platforms because I went out and I will tell you, I've pre-ordered it for the PS5 and my 6-year-old got mad because he can't really figure out how to play a PS5 yet. So I had to order it on the Switch as well. So you're getting double money from me when the game comes out.
Yeah. Not going to complain.
Yeah. And, some people were kind of up in arms when they kind of started, some of the mini games started getting out. I'm just as excited for those as I am. I mean, you have people over, they're not wrestling fans. Hey, we got these little mini games. I mean, there's so many ways that you can spin that, I think it's going to be a really good addition to the game. So
one of the things I really like about the mini games is kind of how more wrestling I think they are than people realize.
Exactly.
Like, you kind of said like with wrestling, there's a little bit of something for everybody. Like Orange Cassidy is my favorite example. People may have never watched wrestling, but then as soon as they see a guy who's fighting with his hands in his pockets, they're immediately on board.
Yep.
Right. It's like, okay, cool. My suspension of disbelief is intact. We can do this. It's fine. So kind of like you said, it's the whole couch multiplayer aspect of if someone sits down and goes, well, I don't really know wrestling, but like Sheeta swinging a kendo stick in a baseball game sounds cool.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
And that's the thing that gets people hooked. You're not quite sure what it is, but if you let people into the buffet, they will find something that they like and maybe they'll stay a while.
Right. Mm-hmm. I can't wait for Wardlow to hit a home run in that thing. Just wow. So.
That's going to be some fun stuff. So, of course, Sunday, big things happening. It's Forbidden Door happening live in Toronto. It's going to be available on pay-per-view as well as select movie theaters, which is pretty awesome around the country. How important is this event to both companies, AEW and New Japan, and how important is it to the wrestling fans in general?
I think Forbidden Door is an extremely important event, and all of our pay-per-views are important just from like a fan perspective, from how we measure success as a business. But Forbidden Door itself is just so unique because it's both AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. And back in the day, before AEW, you could never even imagine major companies coming together to work together like this. Mm-hmm. So the fact that it's happened once, it was so successful, and we're doing it again, it's great for the fans because last year, we know Forbidden Door, we had this great idea, and then all of these injuries started happening, and the card that we got, while still excellent and still an award-winning show, was not the card we expected. So it kind of itself left so much more on the table of like, well, we could get this and we could get this and we could, oh my God, what if we did this? And now like Bryan Danielson, who wasn't even on the show last year, now has this crazy once-in-a-lifetime match with Okada, who somehow he's never wrestled before.
Yeah.
We get to see Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega tear it up again. I think the last one they did was like 6 3/4 stars. Yeah. So it's like, how many more stars can we give them, right? Like, this is going to be excellent. So I think from a wrestling fan perspective, it's great because you know that there's so many more options for how amazing matches are going to be served to you. I think from the business perspective, it can't be seen as anything less than great because it just opens the doors for all these new opportunities, no pun intended. I think for AEW, it's great because it introduces a lot of our people to the Japanese market. And then for New Japan, it introduces a lot of their fans to the AEW market. So it's just overall a fantastic concept. And I'm so happy we're doing it again.
Yeah. And to go to your point too, I mean, if you go back to the 80s, kind of when you had a bunch of these promoters get together to kind of go against Vinny K, you know, it generally ended up being kind of a disaster. You know, they were cannibalizing each other and couldn't agree on things. And then they were drawing like 5,000 people. And it's just, you know, even though last year had its difficulties and then, you know, Adam Cole got injured out of it. So there was a trying time, but it's still, I mean, I loved it. I enjoyed it from top to bottom. And this year definitely feels a little bigger. But I think being in Toronto is going to make it real special because, like you said, those fans are just incredible up there and
they're
starting
on a whole new level.
And the Owen Cup starts up this weekend too, heading into that. So seeing that start up or be associated with Canada, that would be very good too. So
yeah, we've got a couple weeks in Canada. So doing the Owen Hart
just run, yeah. Absolutely.
And then having it culminate in Calgary, like it's just the timing could not be better. It's so great. This is like incredible. The best summer to be a wrestling fan.
I can't wait to see Owen in the video game too, because I mean, just see like doing a match like with him and Orange or him and Ricky Starks. I mean, it's just like physically would have never been possible. You know, just it's crazy. Well, you mentioned earlier that you're working on some things that you can't mention. Is there anything on your plate right now you can disclose? That
God.
Maybe?
Yeah. Here, let me take off one of the like 12 hats I'm wearing.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of different stuff at AEW. Like obviously you see me on TV yelling at, you know, people rolling around in a ring, yelling rules, and sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. When I'm not in a wrestling ring, I have a number of different projects that I'm involved in. I'm working with AEW Games on a few unannounced projects, and I host the podcast, AEW Unrestricted, new episodes every Thursday. One of the other things I'm doing is I'm one of the leads on this thing called AEW Heels, which is a female-focused fan club, which is not something that's ever really existed before in wrestling. And that's something that's very near and dear to my heart because I think even as unbiased as I could be, because obviously I'm very biased, but as a woman in wrestling, it's something that I see there being a need for because it's a very, very male-dominated space. And being a female in a male-dominated role, I feel it even that much more that I want wrestling to feel like it can be something for everyone. So this has been a really fun thing to work on and see people come together, make friendships that wouldn't exist otherwise. And they're all basically being brought together because of wrestling.
Yeah. Now, this is a fun thing. And before we let you go, dream match that you get to call. What would that be?
Oh, God. I have no idea. Like, I have no idea. And it's not a cop-out, but like, literally we're talking about Okada and Bryan this weekend, right? And no one thought it was possible. We thought like 7 years ago, Bryan was never going to wrestle again. So I can't even fathom what my dream match is because it might even happen because that's the reality of what wrestling is nowadays. And honestly, like, I'm just happy to work with all different kinds of people. Like I've had the opportunity to work with Jericho constantly. I have the opportunity to work with Sting. I have, you know, Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, all of these guys that have been all through everywhere forever. So, I mean, it's really hard to answer that question because it's like, just give me everything.
Right. Now, kind of piggybacking off of that, when it comes time for, I guess, the match selection of the night, like, do you all get to like get around and be like, I wish I could, I would like to call this one, or is it kind of already like assigned when you get there and this is the matches that you go with?
So this is a fun one. Our senior official is actually Paul Turner. He He's known everyone kind of at the highest level, like the Bucks and Kenny and Hangman the longest, because they all came from ROH together. So when he came in, he had the most television experience of all of us. And Paul is an absolutely incredible senior official because he makes sure that we all get something cool at the end of the day. So if you have a match that's, say, 2-3 minutes, cool. The next one you're going to get is a title match. So it's like there's always something fun. And he's always thinking about like, oh, this person likes to work with this person. So he'll pair us up together. Like Bryce Remsburg and Orange Cassidy have a ton of history together, which is why you end up seeing them in the ring a lot because they're friends, like behind the scenes. So it's great. Yeah. I obviously work with Jericho a lot. Knox works with the Bucks. Like there's just history and whatnot. And Paul's really respectful of maintaining that, but he's also very respectful of just making sure we all get cool stuff. So I will find out on Sunday what I'm doing. And based on the card we have, I will be happy with whatever I am assigned.
Yeah. I mean, it's a stacked card for sure. Yes. You're going to be able to watch Forbidden Door on pay-per-view, select movie theaters across the country. Real quick, before we let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to tell the listeners? Where can they keep up with you online before we let you go? Promote whatever you'd like to promote right now. This is your floor.
Sure. You can follow me on Twitter, Ref Aubrey. You can follow me on Instagram, Ref Aubrey. You should definitely listen to the AEW Unrestricted Podcast. New episodes every Thursday. You should watch Dynamite Wednesdays, Rampage Fridays, Collision on Saturdays. And if you're not tuning into this pay-per-view and you're a wrestling fan, you're lying to yourself because you are only a wrestling fan if you watch the show because it is just a tribute to wrestling fans.
Boom. That's not an endorsement. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, just end it like that one. Aubrey, it's an honor to have you on the show. Thank you for taking the time out and hanging out with us. And we look forward to seeing you when you guys come to Nashville in August.
Thank you for retreating my action figure with respect, and make sure that you please return that to your son. And thank you for having me.
He will hit me with a guitar like Karen did you. And I'm sorry about that. That was the only thing that popped in my head, but you got payback and made her tap out.
That's fine. Once I got all the splinters out of my hair, it was fine.